Hake report. La la la. Oh, it's the Hake report. The Hake report. La la la. Oh, it's the Hake report. The Hake report. La la la.
Good morning, guys. I am James Hake of the Hake Report. It is 9 a.m. Pacific time, Thursday, April 11th, 2019. Hey, guys. I am on Jesse's stream, so thank you, Jesse. And Christian and Josh, I will get to your calls, but first I want to just give you a quick update on what I wanted to cover today, because somebody gave a super chat last week or earlier this week asking how I came to work for Bond. It actually asked how Joel came to work for Bond and Jesse. And Joel gave a nice answer. I gave a quick answer. I found Bond through word of mouth, how I came to find Bond and work for them. And then also I got some super chats. Creative Source says, this $2 is for the producer of the remix, which was done by Trevor Wesley. Shout out Trevor Wesley for the remix of Stand Up, and also shout out for the remix of the Hake Report, which you just heard. It's so awesome. I also wanted to talk about, Joel was showing you this basketball player named Kyle Guy, and he is 21. He's young, but he's opened up about anxiety, and it's such a shame. He doesn't realize that he shouldn't be doing that. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about Jesse's 90s show that was just referenced earlier in Jesse's show. When Jesse had a beard, he was talking about husband-wife relationships and getting counseling and stuff like that. Oh, man. You shouldn't be looking... Jesse's made a great point that you shouldn't be looking outside yourself for help. You should find it from within. And lastly, I want to mention briefly that Pete Buttigieg is annoying. So let me get to Josh out of Georgia before I tell you my story. Josh, how are you doing, sir?
Oh, I'm doing well. How are you?
Fine, thank you. What's up?
I was calling to mention that a lot of people don't understand the situation because they want to put everybody individual, but it's not the individual when you play the numbers. Like, for instance, I bet that there's a crocodile or alligator out in the world, or maybe a couple of them, that are really nice and cuddly and probably nice to 2-year-olds. But even though that might be the case for reality, I'm still not going to let my toddler go around a crocodile or, because...
Yeah, so you're talking about stereotypes? Or
yeah, basically, like, people will say, oh, you want to classify this, but it's a fool that just wants to go on play the odds,
yeah,
as opposed to, what nature is taught is like, okay, this is how things are going. This is the main number. Like, when I go to the store, I'm going to use money because more people than less use money to pay for things. I'm not going to go there with shells or,
right.
Lint in my pocket and try to pay for stuff. Like, most people use money. Most alligators will eat, and most
Josh, people want to act like generalizations are bad. You're generalizing, but it's not bad to generalize. Generalizations are made because generalizations are generally true most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Except the white people are racist generalization. That's not a true generalization. So anyway,
that's all I was calling about. I mean, I was calling just because I figure a lot of people, they have problems understanding it. But if
you're talking about when Jesse says not all, but most.
Yes,
yeah.
That's exactly not all, but most alligators will eat your 2-year-old.
Yeah,
Let them come around it.
So true. All right, man. Appreciate that, Josh. Take care.
You too.
All right. Christian out of North Carolina. How are you doing, Christian?
All is well, Jake. How about yourself?
Fine. Come off of speakerphone.
Okay, will do. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, much better.
Hold on, just let me turn on the volume here.
All right, hold on, Christian. I wanted to tell you guys also about people with knowledge. It's not about what you know that makes you awake. A lot of people, I'll get back to Christian. His phone is all messed up. He's fixing it. But it's not about what you know that makes you awake. A lot of people think that they're awake because they have knowledge. They say, stay woke. And people on both sides, both the liberals and conservatives, talk about staying woke. And it's just so disgusting. It's not, has nothing to do with woke, what you know. Yeah, a little bit of knowledge can go a long way, but too much knowledge, it's ridiculous because people get arrogant. And then people think that they're awake, and then they're just looking down on people, and everybody else sees through them, except for the people who are on their side. And so it becomes like this echo chamber. Like the flat earthers think they're awake, but then meanwhile their lives are messed up. Same thing with the Jew haters. They think that they're awake because they think they know something about the Jews, and yet their lives are a mess. Same thing with the conservatives. They think they're awake, and many Christians think they're awake because they have this knowledge of the Bible, but yet their lives are messed up. Same thing with everybody and everybody and everybody. All the people that are academia, they're the most disgusting, like out of touch, snooty people that you'll come across, and they're judging Trump. And meanwhile, Trump is every bit as intelligent as them, but he's not snooty about it. He's just down to earth. And then other people may say, even the people that agree with Jesse, they'll start bashing your head over stuff, and they'll repeat Jesse, thinking that they're repeating the truth. I saw a comment alluding to this, and they make a good point. It doesn't matter what you think you know, whether it's true facts or fake facts. It's how you are. People that knew about Joe Biden, people think that they know something about Joe Biden, and it has nothing to do with their life or anybody else's life, but we're talking about it. And if you have a disagreement about whether Joe Biden is creepy, people will start judging each other over whether Joe Biden is creepy. It's such a mess. That's not awakeness. It's how you are. So knowing even Jesse Lee Peterson's, or God himself teaches you something, and then, or the Bible teaches you something, it's no good if you're arrogant. That's not awake. Let me get back to Christian. Christian out of North Carolina, your phone's better?
It is.
All right, cool. Go for it.
So basically, I called last week. Remember, I was the guy who had the incident with the African girl?
No, I don't remember, but go for it.
Well, okay, so technically it was just an incident where, she thought that my tone of voice was rude.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. So guess what happened? I still have my job.
Nice. Right on.
Yes. Yeah, so,
and you never apologized.
Say again?
And you never apologized because you were not right. You were not wrong.
Correct, and that, and I didn't apologize because I wasn't wrong.
Yeah. Well,
so,
good.
Anyways, I was just calling about, this time it was like alphaness,
okay.
and not beta. So,
yes.
Technically, I believe that any guy who has his hair longer than his shoulder width, or he wear earrings, or, things like that, he's kind of taking on his mother's side, and he looks a little bit feminine.
All right.
And that's just pretty odd, to see a guy with long hair.
You seeing that a lot? You seeing that more often than not now?
I see it, yes. I see it more often than now, but I also see now, like, more piercings on guys, too, like on their noses.
Oh, yeah, that is true.
So it's like, I've been, to be honest, I was a victim of that myself, but I think God told me that I didn't deserve an earring on my nose, and it actually, it just closed like 3 times. So I was like, yeah, this is not meant for me. I'm a real man. I shouldn't be doing this kind of stuff.
Dang. Well, I'm glad you listened to that.
Say again?
I'm glad you listened to that.
Oh, of course, and also last year, like I said, I was also had earrings on both of my ears, and just came to my point, like, yo, I shouldn't have earrings. I'm a man.
Right. Wow, that's nice. That's nice.
But-
There's wisdom in the traditions, and people want to throw out the traditions, but there's a reason for those things. It's kind of like these people that think they don't need to get married, officially married. They want to throw out the traditions just to excuse living together and having sex and stuff like that. But and then they hide behind this intellectual, oh, this is just the customs of man. I don't have to listen to this stuff. But they're actually ignoring wisdom. They're throwing out wisdom that they just don't understand.
Of course, because I feel like deep down inside, every man and woman know what's right.
Yeah.
And for example, as a little kid, there used to be some kids around me who always used to be like, yo, why are they acting so like feminine? This is a little bit odd.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be that those guys who were feminine then are now openly gay.
Right. In many cases, yep.
And even as a little kid, even as a 5-year-old, I knew that was just a bit off. Or I was playing with my G.I. Joes, but the guy was playing with Barbies.
Yeah. That is crazy. And his parents allowed him to do that?
Say again?
His parents allowed him to play with Barbies?
I'm guessing it's because his dad was a beta and he wasn't around the household. And most likely than not, it was his mother being in control of the household.
Hey, Christian, I have something that I want you to respond to real fast.
Okay.
So you thought that you shouldn't have earrings. This is from Elijah on Periscope. But you're supposed to doubt every thought. What do you say to that? This person is saying, you're supposed to doubt every thought, but you thought, hey, you shouldn't have earrings as a man.
Well, my response is to, first of all, I knew I shouldn't have those earrings in the first place.
Yeah.
I knew it. Like, I didn't think of it, but then, once I got it off, I was like, okay, well, from the beginning, I think I just did it because everybody else was doing it around me.
Yeah.
And I was in high school. But then over time, I said, this is not right.
Right.
So I knew, first of all, I knew that I shouldn't have them, but I did it anyways because I was in a fallen state. And, during that time where I had my earrings, I also had, like, a bit of long hair. So.
Oh, I see where you're coming from now. Yeah.
So then I knew, I was like, yeah, this is a little bit odd because I'm looking at myself and I don't look manly.
Are you Hispanic?
Correct. I am Mexican-American.
Okay. Wow, cool. All right, Christian, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's not about the thoughts, it's about knowledge. You know what's right. That guy I think a lot of people that get hung up with Jesse about the thoughts and about judgment and Jesus and all that stuff, I think they're not actually trying to understand, or their just mind is closed off already. So they're just trying to catch and make it sound illogical because they don't understand. I appreciate it, Christian. Take care.
You as well.
All right. Take care. Andrew and others, I'm going to get to your calls, but hang on. Let me tell about this story about Kyle Guy before I get to my story. Kyle Guy is this talented NC2A basketball player. He played for Virginia, and I guess Virginia won the national championships or something pretty recently. And the story goes that Kyle Guy struggles with anxiety, and he actually takes pills for it now. And he leans on his girlfriend for comfort to calm him down from the anxiety. And this man, he choked last year in the basketball games, and he got death threats and all kinds of things. It turned him into a mess because he choked. But then this year, at a clutch moment, he scored 3 free throws in a row in order to win by 1 point, win his championship. And then he came out on Facebook maybe last year, and said that he, or maybe it was earlier this year. I think it was a year ago. He said that he wrote a letter to himself. I told this in the news reports during the Jesse Peterson show yesterday, how he was struggling with anxiety, and he was wanting to cry, breaking down crying, not knowing why. And he shared this on Facebook publicly. And a couple of months later, he suffered an embarrassing basketball loss. And he was getting these death threats, and he wanted to cry again. And he did cry again in the showers of the locker room, so he said. And then he posted yet another Facebook, like letter to himself, kind of bearing his soul to the world about his struggle with mental health and raising mental awareness and stuff like that. Mental health awareness. And he talked about how every night his girlfriend, his fiancée, would help calm him down from his basically he's breaking down under the pressure of being like on the basketball team, I guess. And so my thing is he's promoting this, and all the liberal media is promoting this sharing your weaknesses. He's sharing his weaknesses with his girl, with the whole world on social media. And he's only 21 years old, talented player. Had he just stayed quiet about it, he could have maintained his dignity, but now it's kind of embarrassing because he's humiliated himself. And the reason that he's struggling with these, one of the reasons, I believe, that he's struggling with all this anxiety stuff, is pretty popular to be struggling with this stuff now. I mean, it's pretty common. Kind of popular now because they romanticize it. They make it turn you into a victim, and it's nice to be a victim. But his parents are both divorced and remarried. He has, I have to interrupt this briefly. I got a nice super chat. REI is very left-leaning. CEO Sally Jewell is on record in many areas. You shouldn't give them free advertising on your shirt. Otherwise, great show. I appreciate that, Steve. I didn't know. Yeah. REI. Basically, every company is liberal. And including most schools are very liberal. And so this kid, this 21-year-old, I call him a kid, but he's a young man, brainwashed into sharing all of his weaknesses. And it's a shame because his school lists his mother and stepfather first, of course. They always list the mother first. And his real father and stepmother. They're both divorced and remarried. He has 3 brothers, 2 sisters. His great-grandpa was inducted into the Indiana Basketball and Football Hall of Fame. So maybe he has like a little family history of doing very well. And I know I have like friends who are very competitive and dealt with pressure pretty badly. One friend would throw up before his basketball games. I think he was in high school. Throw up. I don't think he ever took anxiety pills because he was older than me. So he was the generation before they started giving people all these pills for things like anxiety. But to me, it's just so sad that this guy is ruining his reputation by openly being a beta male filled with anxiety and stuff. And so his parents and his school and his fiancée set him up. But I can't really judge him because everybody has their weaknesses. And he was totally set up, and he's in a generation. He's like a beta male generation. We are all like in this beta male generation. And up to my 20s, I think I confided in my mother. I didn't know there was anything wrong with it. And then around my 20s, I started to be like, wait a minute, how come I'm confiding in my mother and not my father? And my parents were together. I didn't have the excuse that this guy had. His parents were divorced and remarried. And so he probably stayed with his mother as a kid. Such a shame. Brandon Johnson says, I love Kyle. I live near Charlottesville, Virginia. Yeah, he seems like a good kid. He seems like I call him a kid, but a good guy. But yeah, so people confide in their mother and don't even know that it's wrong. And isn't that such a shame? So that leads me to this thing where I started to realize that I should be confiding more in my father, asking him for advice and stuff like that, I realized that I didn't need to be listening and going to my mother. So that kind of started to wake me up. I grew up Christian, totally Christian, where we went to church. Every Friday we had Jesus Club because the neighbor kids wanted my oldest brother to join their gang, their club. And my mother's like, no, let's start Jesus Club every Friday. So we had Jesus Club where she would play piano and all the neighbor kids would come and the school kids would come and sing and learn Bible stories and stuff like that. That's the type of world that I grew up in, where all my siblings, my older siblings, were listening to Christian music only. And so I wasn't exposed to, I would go to school and see these T-shirts. My classmates would wear Guns N' Roses T-shirts and New Kids on the Block and all that stuff, and all this rap music too. And I only knew Christian rap and Christian rock and Christian music. And so that was my world. And then later on, come high school, I'm like, wait a minute, I should be like reading the Bible. No, not Creed. Creed didn't exist until high school. And I didn't like them that much. Daniel's asking me about Creed. So I got into like Christian music, but then I started like reading the Bible because I should be taking this Christianity thing seriously. I was raised Christian. And then I get into college, and I'm like, the internet started to become in vogue. Come college, come after high school. I got my first email address. And then online, there was this Christian band that started this organization, and they put out this blog that said, we are the Lukewarm Generation. And that rang true to me. So true. Lukewarm meaning not serious Christians, just like pretend Christians, and then we can still sin and stuff like that. And so I tried to take it more and more seriously. I went to Christian college that some of my older siblings went to. And then I started asking my dad for help. And then he referred me to my pastor. And then my pastor referred me to a Christian counselor. And then the Christian counselor is just like a typical professional, psychologist with the veneer of like Christianity, but you could hardly even tell that it was real. And in fact, it wasn't. It didn't do any good. So then later, I hear these people talking, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. I was traveling, visiting friends. I had friends in college, and these friends seemed like so real, like genuine and open. I'm like, oh, these are real people. These are real Christians. So I went to hang out with them. And then come to find out later, like all my friends in college, Christian college, turned out to be liberal beta males and beta females, feminists. But I didn't really know that at the time, or I kind of just let it slide. I didn't care. But they ended up cutting me off. But while I was traveling up to see my friends, somebody said, hey, you're from Los Angeles, you should check out Jesse Lee Peterson. He just tells the plain truth. So then I got back home, and this was 2007. I started coming to Bond Sunday service, and I saw men like Patrick Rooney and others, like kind of leading in church. And it was so refreshing because I had noticed in churches, all the other churches that I'd been to, women were kind of in charge, even though the men were still the pastors. The women were still kind of leading the way behind the scenes and even in front of the scenes. Meanwhile, the men were kind of broken down, insecure, not really as more shy and stuff like that. So Bond was so refreshing. And I've been coming to church ever since. Jesse offered me a job the first time I was at church. And I couldn't take it because I was already just barely starting a job. But 7 years later, he offered me a job again because he was starting a school. And Kelly, the former producer, was going to be the teacher of the school. And so I came in and became a producer. And for 5 or so years, I was producer. And then Daniel came from Florida and relieved me of my duties. And now I have the Hake Report. So that's basically my story. And I liked the reason that I was attracted to come to Bond was because not just men were leading, also because they had this no excuse mentality. And yes, you really are as wrong as you think that you are. Life really is, you're not supposed to be sinning and stuff like that. So that was very refreshing. And it's just down to earth, straightforward stuff. And so all these people that are haters and stuff like that, you can't really pay them any mind. Strength Training with Perry Miller says, I liked this live stream 5 times and it has taken off each time. You should check it out. I'm not sure what's going on with that, but I appreciate the super chat. Let me get, one more super chat. Tex-Mex, I love this extra hour of Hake, brain power, to quote Maze from Dayton, Ohio. Anyways, appreciate you guys bearing with me on that story. Andrew out of DC, first time caller, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Hey.
I just want to call in and thank y'all. I want to thank you and Jesse and all the people working in your organization. It is a true refreshing experience to hear some truth, and it has most certainly spoken to me and helped guide me back to the Father.
Right on. Are you from DC or did you move to DC?
I grew up about 2 hours outside of DC.
Okay.
So I'm familiar with the area, but not the city.
Pretty liberal area?
Yes, and I grew up in Virginia, and I also lived in Maryland as well. And there's it seems that the liberal movement, if you can call it that, has kind of crept into Virginia as well, and it's kind of sad to see that because my whole family is from Virginia, and they're Christians and Bible-believing, God-fearing Christians. And it seems that the D.C., Northern Virginia area is pushing into that and pushing it out.
Yeah. Man.
But I just wanted to say thank you.
Cool. What is refreshing about it? Like, what's one thing that's refreshing from Jesse?
It's so
from this?
easy to get caught up in making excuses for yourself.
Yeah.
I've done it myself, and I am moving beyond that.
Nice.
With the truth within.
How old are you?
35.
Okay. Cool. Nice. Yeah, I totally agree that excuse making is such a trap, and you end up doing it without even realizing it, thinking you're just explaining what happened or whatever. People make excuses like real fast before you even realize that it's an excuse. You've made excuses.
It's so sad because you only hurt yourself and you infect the people around you.
Yeah. And you know what else? It's kind of like this everybody's doing it thing. And everybody's doing it doesn't make you any happier. It makes you just as miserable as the rest of them. And it's miserable.
Yeah. And I really do want to thank you all because, I grew up in the church and I've repented, but I didn't realize that the anger and the lack of responsibility was causing this strife within myself. And I am opening my eyes to moving beyond that and leaving that behind me.
Yeah, that's true. And people don't realize that. People are thinking, oh, they literally excuses by saying God is angry, Jesus is angry, thinking that their anger is like God's anger.
I was taught that, and it's great to have a perspective where you don't have to live in anger. You don't have to let anger control your thoughts and guide you to your own thoughts, which is only going to compound the ungodliness in your life.
Yeah. This guy, LL Cool J 28, Elijah, on Periscope. James, what is sin according to the Bible? Why don't you call in and ask this question? It seems like gotcha questions. Seems like he's not really trying to understand. And I don't know. I run into that kind of thinking so much. You run into people who are quick to judge and slow to listen. They ask these questions, but they're not really listening. It's more like gotcha questions, like purposely not trying to understand. Anyways, Andrew, appreciate your call. Take care.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Derek out of Oklahoma. Derek, how are you doing, sir?
Yes, one second. Sorry, I'm taking off. Yes.
Hey, first time caller.
So I'm curious as to your opinion on the veganism that is being pushed out by Hollywood. Veganism is being pushed out by celebrities.
Yeah.
And I think it's disgusting.
To me, it's like I don't care.
Actually, myself, I follow Sperier and Frank Tufano, stuff like that, and I don't agree with the vegan agenda at all. It's very evil. It's very detrimental to people's health. So what do you think about that?
I don't know much about it. I haven't noticed that there is that big of a push. I do notice that many vegans are kind of crazy, and then many diet pushers, period, are kind of crazy. Like they just, it's like anybody who
specifically, sorry.
But anybody, it's just like the people that think that they know something about something. They end up going nuts with it and beating you over the head with it, and then they're not people to be listened to. Like you just look at them and you go, I'm not going to listen to you. But yeah, I haven't noticed it being pushed.
I'm sorry.
I haven't noticed it being pushed.
Yeah, and it's specifically from the left, and it's specifically from celebrities, and it's very disgusting. I don't know why people aren't taking into account that we all have eaten fermented food, eaten from raw meat for thousands and thousands of years, and now all of a sudden we have to get it directly from our liver. Our liver is the only reason. There was a study done. Could I say real quick? A study done where cats were in a controlled environment, and they were only fed raw meat, and the other one, same thing for the cats, and they were only fed cooked meat. And the cooked meat cats got angry after a couple of generations and started attacking each other.
Huh.
And I just wanted to put that out there. There was a guy named Ogenius Vanderplanets, but you can't really type it.
I would say that I don't see a lot of people adopting veganism. It's not it doesn't sound like a pleasant diet. I do notice that there are a lot of vegan options now, but people are not going to adopt that diet. For the most part, people are just going to stick with what they like. And
it seems like, someone said in the chat, vegans are betas. I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
Just at firsthand, I don't understand the correlation between veganism.
Why is this so important to you, Derek?
What's that?
Why is this so important to you? Did you fall for it? Did you fall for the veganism at one point?
Well, I did a little bit. I was going to the farmer's market getting only vegetables of the full rainbow spectrum.
Yeah.
And I fell victim to it. But I've learned through doing a one-day fasting, finally something random popped up in my YouTube, and I saw Sperier.
Okay.
But
so did you feel better eating the vegetables?
Well, I felt good. After initially, and I believe it was the electrolytes because it was fresh from the ground.
Yeah.
And that's what hooks vegans into food initially.
Okay.
I believe that's what, makes them think that it's healthy. But if you just do sole water, if you make it with distilled water and real salt and do that in the morning, that's really good. But I don't believe in what I do right now is I cook high meat. And what that means is I put it in jars.
All right.
And leave it, and then air it out every 3 days, and that is good for K2. And it's just interesting.
I appreciate it, Derek. I gotta go, but yeah, I think balance is more important than can't go extreme on anything. Take care, man.
Okay, thank you, man.
All right. Yeah, when I ate vegetables and versus when I didn't eat any vegetables. It is a lot better. In the Bible, like these Shadrach, I told the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. I think it was them. They were captured by like the Assyrians or something like that, and they ate their vegetable stuff versus the other wise men who were in captivity eating the choice meats, and they ended up looking healthier, having better color than the ones who were eating the choice meats. So who knows? It's in the Bible. Joe Kenyon out of Arizona. How are you doing, Joe?
Doing great, James. How are you?
Fine. Good to hear from you.
Excellent. Good to hear from you. Hey, you're a little bit tough on that player from Virginia. I know you're not a sports guy, but last year, Virginia had a historic loss. They were the first number 1 seed to lose to a 16 seed.
Yeah.
So this whole entire year here, those guys just had an unbelievable amount, nationwide amount of criticism about how terrible they were and all that. So I think most people would react badly if they were in my kid's shoes.
Right. Yeah, no, it's understandable. But my thing with him is not so much that he deals with that problem, that he thought it was a good idea to share that on Facebook twice and admit to opening up and leaning on his girlfriend for comfort every night so that he wouldn't buckle under the pressure. And he doesn't know better for that. I cut him some slack with that, but it's the wrong thing to do. That's my thing. I don't mean to be mean to the guy.
Yeah, I mean, I would keep it private myself.
Yeah.
But, having played college sports, there is a great deal of pressure on you.
Yep.
But anyway, going back to the first caller about stereotypes.
Not all, but most. Yes.
The problem with that, buddy, is that when you're stereotyping based on no facts or false stats,
right?
He says all the time that, most black people are violent, and he knows that they're not. He's basing it on the FBI stats, which show a very small percentage of black people do violent crimes. But he's trying to make a bigger point. I get that. But those type of stereotypes become dangerous, right?
How do they become dangerous?
Because people start to believe that, okay, like me, a person who's lived a godly life, a straight and narrow life my whole life, if they see me walking down the street, oh, it's a black guy. He, Jesse Lee Peterson says he's most likely dangerous or violent or immoral.
No, that's
not true.
I seriously doubt people are taking Jesse's words, and this is not how stereotypes work. It comes from experience most of the time.
No, stereotypes come from just general false knowledge, James, not from experience.
Okay, perceptions and judgments on experience, let's say. Because a whole lot of, most of my, I grew up among Asians and Hispanics, and most of them do not like black people. And it's because they grew up in the hood in LA when they immigrated here. And then, they had all these experience with the bad black kids. And so they have this judgment on the blacks, and then they see they see how blacks portray themselves in the media and on the news with the riots and all these things.
Right?
Yeah.
Not
all, but most of the time.
Not even most, no.
I know, but I think that most people,
because of the.
But I wouldn't even. When Jesse says that, I take it as I don't know what he means by that, and I don't really take it that seriously. I take it to mean because most people get away with the crimes that they commit. And inside of the home, the mother is often more violent than she needs to be. And so I take violence in the sense, not in terms of committing murders and assaults and all those things, but mothers and black mothers in those homes are being violent in some form or another. And you can use the term violence loosely. And I'm just kind of speculating, and because I don't really care, so I normally will correct Jesse on if he has a number wrong or if he says this incorrectly. But I've never bothered to correct him on this technical thing of most blacks are violent, because you could easily just say the most blacks are violent. You know what? I don't know. To me, it's a toss-up, and people aren't taking what Jesse says and then going out and judging people. I mean, sometimes people are going to judge anyways, right? And Jesse's telling people not to judge.
There, James, because Jesse has a national platform.
But he's telling people not to judge.
No, he's telling people that blacks are violent and they're mentally retarded and that they're full of evil.
But it
People
is
think
mentally
that.
retarded to have children out of wedlock like crazy at a
Do you know how
insane
many
rate.
black babies were born last year? About 500,000.
Yeah,
And the black birth rate is declining.
that's a
right?
shame. That's a shame.
Okay. So
Isn't that a shame?
So the
That means
black birth rate
that means they're aborting them,
declining.
and that doesn't mean they're having less sex. It means that they're aborting them now and
We
practicing
don't know what
so-called
it means,
safe
actually.
sex.
It could mean a whole lot of things. But the point I'm making is that just because 500,000 babies per year are born out of wedlock does not mean most black people are immoral.
Okay, the other mentally retarded thing is to support the Democrat Party at a rate of like 96% in some cases, with Obama and with Doug Jones and all those people. That's retarded.
I wouldn't go so far as saying mentally retarded. I would say that's certainly wrong.
Yeah, but in Jesse's language, that's mentally retarded. You got to cut him some slack for taking liberty with that word.
But the point I'm making, and I'll leave it at this, and I'll let you go on to other callers.
All right.
A while back, I called him to criticize him about the whole Dylan Roof thing, and he made the irresponsible and terrible comment that he agreed with Dylan Roof's reasoning for killing black people. And
He didn't agree with his
kind of
reasoning for
representation.
killing black people? That's not true.
Say again?
He didn't agree with his
Oh, he
reasoning.
absolutely did. I confronted him and said, listen, Roof said he killed black people because he believed that black men were raping white women out of control. And Jesse said, yeah, they are.
Yeah.
He exactly said that. Come on, James.
They are.
That's horrible, untrue. Oh, stop it. That's horrible, untrue. The FBI stats don't show that. And
They
it's
do
a
show
terrible
that.
thing to say.
Hold on.
They do not.
But that's not the only thing that was happening. Dylan Roof said that he noticed he had black friends, by the way, growing up, and he noticed this attack on white men, but then it didn't really correspond with the real world that he's seeing. And when the real world he's seeing, he Googled black on white crime. And he found that the black on white crime is what's happening, not white on black. And yet whites are being accused of racism, of rampant racism, when it's not true. And so
And
he's
there's
seeing this.
very few black people committing those crimes, right?
Yeah, but it's much
Okay.
more, way more than white on black crime.
But why judge most black people on the actions of a tiny, small percentage?
I don't know. But most black people
Exactly.
fall for this stuff.
That's my point, and that's the kind of stuff. That's the
But
kind
he
of crap
didn't.
that Jesse
He
puts
never
out there.
justified. Hold on.
That's
He never
dangerous,
justified the
James.
murder. And
What
you
are
said that
talking
he
about?
agreed
said
with the
that
reasoning.
That was his motivation for committing those murders.
No, that
James.
wasn't his motivation. He wanted to start a
No,
race
he
war.
said it in print, buddy. You cannot deny that. He said it in print.
That wasn't. He said it, but he didn't say this is my motivation. He says this is how I came.
He said that was part of his motivation.
No,
for
his
killing those
motivation
people.
was to
Absolutely.
start a race war.
That too.
No, that
He
only.
said in
He
particular.
wanted to start a race war.
No, he said that in print, buddy. You can't deny it. It's in
He
print.
said that, but
You
that
can
wasn't
Google
his motivation. That's how he changed. That's how he changed
How do you
from
know
having
it was
all
his
these black
mind?
friends.
He's telling you
He
what
read
his
it.
motivations
Yeah,
were.
I read it. He didn't say this is my motivation. And you're acting.
They
You're
asked
you're
him,
just
why
shrugging
did you
off.
target blacks?
Do you care about the whites that are raped by blacks?
Oh, stop trying to change the stuff.
Do you care about
I
them?
I don't agree with a rape, of course. I would disagree with all of that, of course.
And so why are you downplaying it? They don't downplay when a white the rare moment when a white kills a black.
Don't put words
They don't
in my mouth,
downplay
man.
that.
I'm not downplaying anything. The point
And
I'm
so that's
making
what
is
he's
that Jesse
reacting to.
Agreed with false reasoning.
No, that's
false
fact. He
statistics,
didn't agree with the
and
reasons.
Further it.
He never
did.
agreed.
He said it on air.
You're making up.
James,
He's agreeing
he
with the
said
facts.
Roof was right. Roof was not right.
He never said Roof was right. What are you talking about?
He said those exact words.
Dylan Roof was right that he was right that blacks are raping whites more than whites are raping
No,
blacks.
not just raping, out of control.
Yeah, they are raping them out of control.
They are not raping out of control. Stop it.
Yeah, their rapes are
A very
black
few
rapes.
percentage of black people commit violent crimes, including rape. So don't say most people do. And
It's
and
hugely
we're just wrong about that.
disproportionate to the other to the rest of the population.
Again, don't judge
You know
the
that,
entire
right?
population
You
based
know
on-
that-
on the worst
Hold on.
behavior
Hold on.
Of a small percentage, James.
You know that blacks are committing crimes at a hugely disproportionate rate to the rest of the population, right?
The stats show that.
Yes.
But again, It is a tiny percentage of black people that do that.
But why do you need to downplay it?
Education.
You're not helping by downplaying
homes are far better indicators, and nobody's downplaying it.
Yes, you are. And everybody, hold on. You just said nobody's downplaying it. Who do you mean by nobody's downplaying it? Who do you mean?
I said I'm not downplaying those stats.
But people are downplaying it, right?
Like who?
The mass media, they don't even talk about this fact. They accuse you of white nationalism.
I've heard on CNN.
They accuse you of white nationalism just for mentioning it.
Buddy, why do most black people have to suffer for the actions of a tiny percentage of black people?
How are most black people suffering for that?
Because people like Jesse say, "Oh, this proves most black people are violent."
How are you suffering by Jesse saying words?
Because when Jesse puts that out there in a national audience, people hear that, and who aren't smart enough to say, well, Jesse's trying to make a bigger point here, or Jesse's not really meaning what you're trying to say. Gee, I better be afraid of black people. They're violent. They're dumb.
People already know about black people, Joe. People already know about blacks.
And the facts show black people, the overwhelming majority, don't do those things.
But they support those who do.
What do you know about black people, James?
They support those who do. They support the party that supports criminals, and they play victim. They cry racism. It's a mess. Even you're a decent person, right? And yet you're attacking Jesse for telling the truth.
He's not telling the truth. That's the whole point.
The truth is the rapes are out of control compared to the white on black rapes.
The truth is overwhelmingly most black people don't commit violent crimes. That's the truth. The stats clearly show that.
And what's your point? What's your point with that, though?
The point is, Jesse's saying most.
And how are you suffering from that? You're making up this idea that people are going to think that you're scary just because of Jesse saying something, but that's not true.
It absolutely is true.
Okay, name me an example. Somebody told you, Jesse told me to be afraid of you.
Stupid.
Name me a time when somebody told you, Jesse told me to be afraid of you.
James. You just said it. People know how black people are.
Yes.
Well, where'd you get that idea from, James?
Looking around, looking at blacks. I grew up looking at blacks, how they act.
Looking around, anecdotal evidence, in other words, right?
No, it's your personal. You want to downplay the real world by leaning on statistics.
In fact, I work to fix those problems.
No, you're not supporting fixing those problems.
I work every day to fix those problems, James. So I don't downplay anything. My point is, people like you just said, and others here. Well, in my experience, black people are terrible, but and the stats don't follow that up at all.
Yes, they do, because they support the party that they support
black people commit violent crimes.
96% support the party that supports criminals.
And that's a problem.
Yeah.
Well, come on, supports criminals?
Yes, the Democrat Party supports criminals.
On the Republican side too, buddy.
That's fine. That's fine, but that doesn't make it right for them to support the Democrat Party. I'm wrong for having supported rhinos. I admit. All right, Joe, I got to go, man.
All right, but I'll call you sometime.
All right, John, out of Illinois, first-time caller. How you doing?
Hey, fine. How you doing?
Fine. You had a question? Go for it.
Yeah, I just got a simple question, and then I could just hang up and listen.
Okay.
I'm Caucasian, and I lived in the Mexican neighborhood for about 40 years. And
back off the phone a little, John. Back off the phone a little.
What?
Back off the phone a little. You're blowing it out.
Oh, okay. So I lived in the Mexican neighborhood for like 40 years.
Are you on speakerphone, John? Hang on. Maze out of Dayton, Ohio. Yeah, fix that. Maze, how are you doing?
Hello, James.
Hey.
Well, that was a strange conversation.
What was a strange conversation? With Joe?
You and the guy before, the one that the Caucasian said he lives in a Mexican neighborhood.
Oh, okay.
Now I understand more about you, that you told me how you grew up, and you didn't grow up around black people.
Nope.
People of color. You only grew up around Asian people and Hispanic people.
Yep.
And that's all you know.
No, it's not all I know. Please.
Let me finish.
That's not all I know. Okay, so it's a lie, though. It's not all I know.
When you don't get to know people or be around
I got
people
to know
that
them.
don't look like you.
I went to Pasadena City College, and believe me, I got to know blacks.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did.
if you say so. So
I do
grew
say
up
so.
around and been around a whole lot of different people. That's
All right.
why I understand people. And I don't have people teaching me to hate people.
Being around people doesn't
know the
make you
people.
understand them.
Can I finish, Johnny?
Yeah.
And I get to know the people, and I determine about the people that I know. Not what I see on TV, or not what I'm just hearing somebody tell me. I know from experience.
So then how
what
come you think that
experience
whites are
do
so
you know
racist
from
when
what
it does
you're
not
talking
even
about?
exist?
Okay, I'm
Huh?
listening.
How come you think
What experience
whites?
do you
How
have
come you
from
think
what
whites
you're
are so
discussing about
racist then?
People of color.
How come you think whites are so racist then?
I think what?
Whites are racist.
You never heard me say white. So I said they're bigots. That's what I
Bigots.
said. Caucasians. I didn't say white.
Same thing.
So there's no such thing as white.
Okay, well, how about the Negroids? How come you don't call them the blacks Negroids?
Because how many different names have the Caucasian gave the people of color? How many names
No,
have they given them?
who gave the Caucasians that name? How come you don't just call them whites?
I have the slightest idea.
All right, interesting.
But anyway, as I was saying, Dan, what experience do you have about the stuff that you talk about when it comes to black people? What experience have you had to know what they do and what they don't do?
World real life experience, talking to people like you on the phone, and going to Pasadena City College, and where there's a lot of blacks. Many of them steal very quickly. Stealing very, very quickly.
In other words, you don't have any in your family.
Yeah.
You don't have any that you acquired with, except Joel.
Why do I have to have blacks in my family?
What?
Why does it matter that I don't have blacks in my family?
Because you don't know anything about. Just like, I mean, in order for you to know about something, you have to have experience with what you're talking about.
And I have experience with them.
Been around what
Plenty of experience with them.
With somebody that you're talking about.
Plenty of experience with them. You ever
like
heard of
Joel
Black
Friday,
Twitter?
I understand what's wrong with him too.
Huh?
I understand what's wrong with Joel Friday too.
No, you don't. You don't have understanding. You're judging
He's been
people.
Indoctrinated.
All you ever do is sit around and judge people. Judge.
Want me to tell you what's your problem? Some of those on the super chat. Some of them some skipped too many days out of school for one reason. Some of those I understand those too, and they want to go back to what their grandfathers did. I understand that too. But
yeah,
it's
that's ridiculous.
It's funny.
All right, Maze.
But you don't. But I still tell you, black people are not worried about nobody liking them.
Oh, believe me, they are. Yeah, they are.
The people
That's ridiculous.
That won't be able to go to other
they are
countries
so hung up on who likes them and who doesn't like them. It's insane. Yes, they are.
Can I speak? Am I speaking for Caucasians or am I speaking for some black people that I know?
Okay, some blacks.
See, you won't be able to go around the world to travel and do the things that you used to do because people don't want to see you coming.
Okay.
And that's a fact.
All right, Maze. Thank you.
Have a good one.
You too. Let me get back to John out of Illinois. Yes, John, go for it.
Yes, hi, how are you? I got a comment and a question.
Okay.
It seems like the black people, they always talk about that white people are born racist, which makes me laugh because I came to the U.S. when I was 12 years old, and up to that point, I never seen a black person, a live one, just on pictures. I never had any contact with black people. Mm-hmm. So when I came here, I mean, there were just people of different color. I had no kind of animosity against them.
Right.
But it slowly creeped up. And when I went, I didn't know where I was going. I was new. And I went to the wrong neighborhood, and I got jumped, beat up, and then I had my money stolen from me. That was a kind of awakening. I said, well, why did they do that? What's the problem? So basically, racism is learned. If somebody is racist, and he's not born with it. So that's my first comment. My other comment is, the question is, why do black people always support the Mexicans or the Hispanics whenever they have any kind of a rally or march or anything like that?
I'll tell you.
Mexican people don't like blacks.
I know.
I lived in a Mexican neighborhood for 40 years.
They like their music.
They're no big fan.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, people aren't racist. It's just a stupid idea. But people do become very judgmental of other people based on just shallow appearances. But it's insane. But many blacks do not support Hispanics, but they end up supporting them anyway by supporting Democrats and stuff like that. But
Right.
You're right that there is this fake, I guess it's not that fake, allyship or something between the blacks and the Hispanics and others. And the reason is they're on the side of those who are supporting each other for like the immigration stuff and all that. They're on the side of what's wrong. They hate whites. They hate the country. They think that there's racism. And so like they think that they need to join forces. And each evil group has their own agenda. But they have a common enemy, which is good and truth. And so they join forces against anybody who's telling the truth. For example, Donald Trump. And you had that Nipsey Hussle song, F Donald Trump, FDT. Well, it's actually a YG, I think, some song. But Nipsey Hussle sang on it. And he said it wouldn't be USA without Mexicans. And Tupac said it about LA. And they don't realize that they're supporting their own demise. Not because Hispanics necessarily even care to attack them. Many of them do attack them. But they also just coming in and taking the jobs. And then the blacks don't mind because they're on welfare and unemployment and stuff. And then they don't really make the connection that they're supporting the downfall of the country, and they're having to move to the South, and their neighborhoods are turning more like, as Jesse says, like Mexico. And they don't realize that the Hispanics are more so-called racist against the blacks than the whites ever were. But it's a mess. But it's basically because it's not about being black or being Hispanic, even though they think that they're hung up on that. It's about being right or being wrong, and they're hung up on being wrong, and a whole lot of people are. So people get stuck on fake identity.
Yeah. Well, that brought another, when you mentioned it, black people move into white neighborhoods, fine. I mean, that's what's been happening for a long time. I don't know if it's still happening. The whites move out. Then what happens, which I find very, very interesting, the Hispanics are actually displacing blacks from their own neighborhoods.
Yep.
I've noticed that in Chicago, in several places where we used to be all black neighborhood, and all of a sudden, street by street, house by house, they're moving in and displacing the blacks that live there, which I just find it totally. I don't know what to even think about that.
Yeah, and
but they still pretend to be friends and allies when they're getting kicked out of their own neighborhood. So they're
friends as long as they're spoiled and not struggling. As long as they're not struggling, they're being spoiled, they can pretend to be friends, but then once a conflict occurs, they're no longer friends. And they're each hung up on their own fake external so-called identity. It's just like the gays thinking that gay is who they are. And it's even worse with the gays because that's even more made up than this race thing. If you're going to live in America, you better become American. But nobody's forcing people to become Americans anymore. John, I got to go, man. I appreciate your call.
Okay, thanks.
All right, take care. Tony, Ron, Leo, I'm sorry I wasn't able to get to your calls, but we'll be back. I'll be back Sunday on the Hake Report, which is live every Sunday, 9 a.m., and now also Thursdays on Jesse's stream, 9 a.m. Make sure you check out Church with Jesse Lee Peterson, rebuildingtheman.com/church. It's the best. And we're putting out more content on Bond Rebuilding the Man YouTube channel. So go follow that and follow my channel, The Hake Report. Or that's actually Hake now. I just like it. It's faster to say and to type. Thank you guys and take care.
Wow.